Hare Krishna. Namaste. Chapter 3, which is entitled as Karma-yoga. Sloka 3. śrī-bhagavān uvāca loke smin dvi-vidhā niṣṭhā purā proktā mayānagha jñāna-yogena sāṅkhyānāṁ karma-yogena yoginām. So, karma-yoga and jñāna-yoga are of two different paths. One is called pravritti marga, another one is called nivritti marga. That is, karma yoga is to do with activities in action and getting engaged in many worldly things. Whereas jnana yoga is called nivritti marga, which is restricting from worldly activities. That is, one is engaging the senses, whereas the other one is restricting the senses. Arjuna asked this question in the previous two slokas. So Krishna is going to respond to Arjuna in the sloka and following slokas. When he says before, he says purā proktā. In the previous chapter I have explained this to you. I have explained to you. What I said in the previous chapter is not to confuse you, but to make you understand that there are two classes of people in the world. The idea is to give opportunity to everyone and anyone to become a self-realized person. So if it is only one path, not necessarily that everyone will be interested or may be eligible to take up that one path. Therefore, I've explained to you two methods. I'm therefore not to confuse you, especially when you're already confused about your duty. I'm not here to confuse you any further. So what we have to understand is that a real well-wisher is one that he doesn't have any doubt in what he is going to convey to others, a message, an advice, and will never put the other person into a doubtful state. That's number one. Number two is, the well-wisher, they are not bound by any time and place. Third, they do not speak for pleasing others. Number four, they do not expect any sort of help like money, followers, name, fame, prestige. Their only intention is to speak the truth and help other person, to uplift them, their consciousness from material to spiritual. Therefore Krishna is saying indirectly that he is here to help and uplift Arjuna's consciousness, but not to confuse him any further where he is already confused. So let's understand what's Arjuna's doubt one more time. What doubt he has in his mind clearly. He feels that karma yoga and jnana yoga are two different paths. One can choose either one to attain self-realization or Paramatma realization. The reason he feels they are two different because karma yoga is to do activities, and jnana yoga is to restrict the activities. So his doubt is, how can karma yoga, which is activity based model, can become the media for jnana yoga, for one to become a jnana yogi, which is to completely control the senses, restrict all the activities, retire from everything, renounce. So Krishna's response is, I have given two different systems, Arjuna, for different people. Loke bhinna ruchihi. As there are many people, based on their interest, they can take up and they can perfect their life. But for one to become a jnana yogi, he has to have a strong desire, determination, and mental strength. Whereas for karma yogi, these two are not the requirement. In other words, jnana yoga is for those who can control their senses, and karma yoga is for those who can't control their senses. Well, from what we just saw now, it may appear that jnana yoga is superior to karma yoga, and karma yoga is for unqualified people, and jnana yoga is for qualified people who can control senses and mind, which is true at this point. But as we go further into this chapter, Krishna is going to say more about how great karma yoga is in Krishna consciousness, and one gets same result what they would get otherwise by following the jnana yoga. In chapter 2, the sequence is karma yoga, which leads to jnana yoga, which gives the atma darshan. One can see the atma. But the subject changes in chapter 3, that the sequence is just by doing karma yoga, one can attain self-realization without interference of jnana yoga. That's the beauty of this chapter, and hence this chapter is entitled as karma yoga. Even if one is qualified, it is better for him to follow his dharma, in this case for Arjuna, karma yoga, which is to fight. The reason is, just because Arjuna is qualified and he takes up jnana yoga, but his followers may also think the same way and take up that one. If they cannot complete it, then they become a failure, and that sin will go to Arjuna for misleading his followers. Therefore, to set up an example, Arjuna should do what he is supposed to do as a Kshatriya. So, another important aspect that we need to know from here is, for one to become a jnana yogi, one has to go through karma yoga fully. Whereas Arjuna's thought is, doesn't need to go to karma yoga, doesn't need to do karma yoga, one can directly jump onto jnana yoga, which is not the case. That has been clarified here, that to be a jnana yogi, one has to follow karma yoga fully, by doing which he will be free from the sins and his mind gets purified. When the mind gets purified, then he becomes eligible to perform jnana yoga. But in case of karma yoga, one can still get the same result of jnana yoga without having to go through jnana yoga process. There's no interference of jnana yoga in the karma yoga program. So the question is, how to get that by just doing karma yoga, how to be self-realized by not going through the jnana yoga but just following the karma yoga path. And this is explained thoroughly. We saw in the second chapter repeatedly that one has to do their duty with three principles in their mind, in their consciousness. Number 1, I am not the doer. Number 2, I am not the proprietor. Number 3, I do not expect any result in return. Just having these 3 principles is not just sufficient enough. One has to have a proper understanding that action that they are doing as an offering to Krishna. So we have to change this 3 principle. In other words, to understand that I am not the doer. Number 1, I am not the doer. Krishna is the doer. Number 2, I am not the proprietor. Nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to Krishna. Number 3, I do not expect any result for myself, as all the results belongs to Krishna. In this way, when one does their duty, one will be able to attain Atma Darshan or Paramatma Darshan if they desire so. This all happens by the grace of Krishna alone. Loke smin dvi-vidhā niṣṭhā purā proktā mayānagha jñāna-yogena sāṅkhyānāṁ karma-yogena yoginām. Namaste. Hare Krishna.